What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Around the Felt. We have the Houston Texans tonight to continue our mini-series recapping the 2024 season, discussing the 2025 offseason. The Houston Texans, a playoff team, but did not get the job done yet again this year. I am your host, Colin Tong. Joining me tonight, as always, my co-host, Reagan Loescher. Reagan, we'll start with you, my friends. First, how you doing? Number two,
Good.
What is your grade for the Houston Texans 2024 season?
I'm doing good. I'm a Houston Rockets fan, so the other Houston team is doing good. So, yeah, going to get in the good grace with my Houston Texan fans out there. I'm not a Houston Texans fan, but I like the Rockets. So,
Why are you a Rockets fan?
I am a Rockets fan because of Yao Ming and Steve Francis on NBA 2K4 or 5.
That's a good reason.
Or wouldn't have been 2K.
Reason.
It was like
that's not a good reason. That's not a good reason at all.
It's a great reason. Why would I want to be a Knicks
Well, it's a
fan
better
or a
reason
Nets
than mine being like the Florida Gators. Go Gators, by the way, natty champs. Let's go.
No, bro, I don't know. I used to just spam Yao Ming. You can't blame a guy for loving the cheese the 7'6" guy, and Steve Francis was like 6'3", and also the graphics back then were crazy. If you know, you know. But I will give the Texans a B because I thought that they could do more this year, and then towards the end of the year, I'm like, all right, this team's terrible. They're gonna get upsetted, or not upsetted, but they're just gonna get boat raced by the Chargers. And once again, I ate crow. I mean.
Yeah,
I think everyone's going to learn at this point. You don't if the Houston Texans make the playoffs and they're going to have the Saturday opening game, you don't fade them. They always have that first game in the Saturday window, and they always seem to win. And then the next week they lose. But it was like that with Watson, and now it's like that with Stroud. It's back-to-back years where the Chargers and the Browns, the hot team coming in, and then Houston just takes care of business at home. But anyway, I mean. I thought C.J. Stroud would have taken a bigger jump. I mean, he was a popular MVP candidate coming into the year. And, the defense I thought would be a little bit better. And then you bring in Joe Mixon. Obviously, unfortunately, Stephon Diggs went down. So that would have been, a whole nother element to the offense. And then they lose. Why am I blanking out on his name? The wide receiver from Houston that they drafted. No, not Diggs.
Tank
Tank. I'm sorry. Yes, Tank. I knew where he played. I just couldn't put the name to him. So, but anyway, Tank, the wide receiver from Houston, like he's from Houston College, but I realized how I said it sounds even more dumb.
He's from Louisville.
I thought he played at Houston.
No, I'm pretty positive he played at Louisville.
Check while I keep going on my spiel. But anyway, you lose Tank.
Oh, no, you're right. It is Houston.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you lose Tank. You lose Diggs. Nico dealt with injury concerns throughout the year. So it was just the offense was kind of falling apart. The O-line was terrible, and Stroud obviously regressed. Defense was, their better half, but I think they were more of a benefactor of just being in a bad division. But a lot of people were like, oh, look at Patrick Mahomes, look at Joe Burrow, look at Lamar Jackson, look at Josh Allen. Now we got C.J. Stroud, who's going to be like kind of that fifth quarterback in that conversation after his rookie year. And then, now leaving this year, it's like, yeah, we still believe in him, but I think there's a lot of question marks. Is he really the long-term guy? I mean, I wouldn't be out on him, but he definitely needs to take a step forward and continue to build off of his rookie year. Because, I think a lot of Texans fans after leaving last year are probably a little nervous and not feeling as confident as they did going into this offseason like they did in his rookie year. But I gave him a B because, ultimately they won the division. They won a playoff game. It's still a young team. I'm not fully out on them. Obviously we just talked about the Bucs and I was a little more negative towards them, but I think it's just because, the AFC is so much more difficult than the NFC. But Colin, what did you give them?
I gave him a B+. So similar limelight as what you're giving them here. They're the favorites to win the division. They got the job done, but they lost in the same round as they did the year prior, the divisional round. They did demolish the Chargers. That was a really good showing out of them, and C.J. Stroud was awesome in that game. So, he's got the cojones to play some playoff football, which is a positive. Also, Nico Collins and Joe Mixon balled out in that game, who were both awesome this year as well. Mixon was a great sign for them, what they needed in this offense. Nico was banged up a little bit early, but came back and was just his normal self. I mean, this dude is just I think he's so underrated. I think he's a top 10 receiver, absolutely, for sure. Just a total stud of a player. Then you lost to Kansas City. it's kind of hard to knock a team for losing to Kansas City in the playoffs. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I gave him a little extra bump and gave him a B+ for making the divisional round because, going to Arrowhead is no easy feat, right? So it's hard for me to be negative about that. But what I am going to be negative about is the sophomore slump from CJ Stroud. Very curious to see what he does next year. But when you consider he played 2 more games in 24 compared to 23, he had 370 less passing yards, 3 less touchdowns, and his interceptions jumped from 5, which was amazing for a rookie. Like I think he set a record for most passes to start a career without an interception his rookie year. But he had 5 interceptions his rookie year. He had 12 this year. And obviously the injuries to wide receiver position did not help. Losing Diggs to the ACL in, I believe, week 8, losing Nico for a stretch, and then that gruesome injury to Tank Dell just sucks. It sucks for the team. It sucks for him. That's Stroud's boy. They came in together. He told the team to draft Tank Dell after he was selected. So it just sucks. So that didn't help the injuries to receiver position. Also, he was under duress a ton. I mean, the offensive line was just not good outside of their stalwart and Laremy Tunsil, who, we'll get into that in a little bit. They traded. But outside of him, they've taken swings on some guys along this offensive line that they've drafted.
Titus Howard.
Yeah, Titus Howard, Kendrick Green, who also is gone now. But they took some swings. They just didn't pan out along that offensive line. They thought they were going to have something to build off of in front of CJ Stroud, but clearly they're retooling for a reason. So when you combine those two things, I could see why he might have taken a slight step back, but still it's not ideal for this team. And that's my biggest negative coming out of the season. It's not that they lost in the playoffs and didn't win the ultimate goal here, because I'm not going to shit on them for losing to Kansas City, but it's the regression from Stroud and just being at the same level. But there's definitely a lot to build off here. I like the defense a lot. They were 14th in scoring, which is, middle of the pack, obviously, but 6th in total, 6th in pass, 11th in rush. So they just got to get off the field a little bit more, stop allowing teams to get points, because in terms of yardage, his defense is really good, led by Derek Stingley, who has solidified himself as being worthy of that 3rd overall pick and all-pro caliber player. So, obviously he got his big extension this offseason. Defense is going to be good. I think it's only going to get better next year. DeMeco Ryans, got to be confident in him running this defense, but it goes back to the offense heading to 2025. CJ Stroud, what are you going to do for me? You going to look more like your rookie year or more like last year? Can you even build off that rookie year? And how is the protection going to look in front of him?
Yeah, I still, and we can use this to segue in, but I still was a little shocked that they traded away Laremy Tunsil. And that probably speaks to where they're going in the draft. But, does that not shock you? I don't know.
I was completely
really
stunned. I understand, getting rid of Shaq Mason and Kendrick Green. Obviously Diggs was kind of there on a 1-year thing. They reworked his contract. That always seemed like a 1-year type of deal, unless maybe they made a run. He wanted to come back, right? But the Tunsil one really just shocked me, because it almost seems like that's the guy you keep. I think Tunsil's on a track where he potentially is going to be a Hall of Fame caliber player, what he's done throughout his career. And to trade him away, protecting Stroud's blind side when you're picking 25th in the draft, and you might not necessarily, it's not like you're drafting a blue chip tackle to replace him, right? Like, you're going to take a guy that's there at 25 because he has some question marks. So, yeah, I understand. And they did bring in Cam Robinson, right? Who's probably going to be slated in to start at left tackle right away. But still, it's not your long-term answer. I mean, he got traded last year from Jacksonville to Minnesota for a reason. Minnesota let him go for a reason, right? Darisaul's going to be back, so maybe it makes more sense for Minnesota. But regardless, there's now a lot of holes along this offensive line, and Laremy Tunsil is the one guy you can count on.
Yeah. I don't know. He gets to play with back-to-back number 2 overall picks, so cool experience for Tunsil.
Yeah, that a boy. Maybe he'll break out a gas mask for the occasion. I don't know, but moving on. And some other.
Whoa, come on, whoa, that shit's legal now. Chill with that.
Yeah,
dog. What?
Oh, all those dumb teams for passing on him because he had a little gas mask on. My Giants taking Eli Apple over him, but we won't get into it.
Yeah, that guy looks like he's fucking stoned with his eyes.
The additions that the Texans have made this offseason. They traded for Christian Kirk from their division rival, Jacksonville Jaguars. So now your receiver room You got Nico, you got Kirk, and Tank Dell. You're probably assuming is going to miss most, if not all, of this season. So wide receiver could be in play in the draft for sure. They traded for CJ Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles. I love that pickup for him. Adding a safety to the back end of that defense, which is already sixth best in the league last year in terms of passing yards allowed. You got a guy with some dog mentality to go back there. I think that's a great addition for him. They added some offensive linemen as well. Guard Ed Ingram, guard Lincoln Tomlinson, and tackle Cam Robinson. So a lot of retooling with some vets there, but I think offensive line is certainly in play for them in the draft here, Reagan.
Yeah, no, I would definitely. I mean, indications tell me they would go offensive line just based off the trade. I mean, obviously the edge is pretty stacked right now. The trenches. I mean, I guess
Will
they could
Anderson,
go with.
They're not going
with
edge.
An interior guy. No,
they
I was saying they
could
could go with an interior guy.
Yeah, I mean, they got Will
they could
Anderson.
go with a linebacker, but I think looking at this team, the most glaring need is the offensive line. So I think I would just be shocked if they go anywhere but offensive line. Like that is by far the most glaring need. You need to protect CJ Stroud. You need to be able to establish the run game with Joe Mixon because, at times he was very dominant, but then when you went against some of the best run defenses, he just got bottled up.
Yeah.
And, we saw multiple times, like I remember as a Jet fan, like we were a bad team, but they made our defensive line look sick against them on that Thursday Night Football game on Halloween. So, they obviously have issues. You get rid of Laremy Tunsil. So I would think you could go for one of those guard tackle types where you have the flexibility because right now this is probably one of the worst units in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think my number one target for them is Josh Simmons, a tackle at Ohio State, who would not be there at 25 if it weren't the ACL injury that he suffered. Or actually, I think it was the patellar tendon in his knee, not the ACL. But regardless, knee injury, he would have been probably a top 12, 13 pick if he didn't have that knee injury. So when you have an opportunity to pounce on a talent like that due to injury concerns, of course, as long as your medical people clear him and he passes the physicals and you're not worried about his long-term health, because it's never good leg injuries with big offensive linemen like that. But, Simmons would not be there if it weren't for the injury. So I think you could pounce on that. I mean, there's so many offensive linemen that could be available. Kelvin Banks, tackle guard flexibility. Gray Zabel, interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State, getting a lot of love right now. I think that could make sense. Maybe receiver, potentially. Would you hate it?
Yes.
You would hate
that. I would hate
Why?
that. Yeah.
Are you sold?
Because
that
I just
the long-term solution there.
No, but they just I don't think the weapons are the issue. I mean, if Loveland is to fall, okay, because Schultz obviously, you gave him the contract, but he's an older guy. He's easy to get out of that. So if you want to find a long-term answer there, I'd be fine with tight end. But no, I would not go wide receiver. I think that would be a big mistake. I think, Mason Graham will obviously be gone, but if you want to go Derek Harmon out of Oregon, it sounds like
Nolan, if he's
Walter
there.
Nolan,
Walter
you can
Nolan
go as
could
well.
be a home run pick. Yeah,
Kenneth
that seems
Grant
like
as well. So there's a lot of solid D tackles that I think will be there. I think everyone but Mason Graham will be there at their point. So that's a big issue for them too, is the interior. You got to get a beef boy in there. Which Kenneth Grant is probably the biggest beef boy out of the three. I mean, I think he's 330. Yeah.
They could take the guy. They could take the guy out of Florida that's 464 pounds on like day 3 or 4 and really add some beef up front.
Oh, Cam Jackson? No, not Cam Jackson.
No.
The other one.
Yeah,
Cam Jackson's huge though too. 6'6". Damn, bro.
Damn. Yeah, I think you're right though. I think like it's probably going to be offensive line. It should be offensive line, but you also just don't want to be in a position when you're drafting and it's like, oh shit, like we didn't expect Matthew Golden to be here, right? Like a guy where it's like you have him way up on your board as like your 12th, 13th, 14th best player, and you're at 25 and you're like, he's just too good. Like he's too good of a player. Like you still want to take that guy and not take an offensive lineman because you need offensive line, even though if he's rated like 30th on your board, right? So the need has to match the value here, I think, for Houston.
They still got Mechie. They went out and paid Berrios. They signed Justin Watson. I mean, I don't know. I just think they have so much depth. Even Xavier Hutchinson showed some flashes. So they're pretty deep there. I would say you can make the case that there's their deepest spot. I mean, yeah, if somebody falls, and they did get Sheldon Rankinson as well in free agency. So, I don't know. I think just looking at the offensive line right now,
None of those guys you named are long-term solutions. You're not drafting for
I
25.
know that,
You're
but the
drafting who's going to grow with Stroud for the next 5 years.
But
That's
why
what
you
you're
got
thinking
Nico
about.
Collins and Tank Dell, bro. I don't think they're I don't know. I just find it hard to believe that with their bigger issues on the offensive line that they'd opt to go for, a glorified number 3 for now.
Look, it'd be number 2, first of all. Second of all, I agree. They should go offensive line, but my only point being...
Why the hell are you trying to make another case then?
My point being, I don't think they should reach for an offensive line if guys are flying off the board early. I don't think you reach for a guy because you think you got to go offensive line. You did add 3 veterans in the offseason. Yeah, it's priority number 1 is protecting CJ Stroud. But I'm saying if you have a significantly higher grade on a receiver that slid to this point, I think it's worthy of the conversation.
Yeah, I don't really like what you're saying.
No, that's fine. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine, but that's how I
think
feel.
There's a better chance that they would go with a running back for the replacement for Joe Mixon by next year and Omari and Hampton than there would be that they take a wide receiver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I think there's a better chance of that happening than them going wide receiver.
Okay. I mean, okay. Well, we'll see what happens. I don't
even think you disagree with that because I just always spit facts. And you always listen like a good boy.
I do disagree with that. I definitely disagree with that. And also, don't ever fucking say that on my podcast, first of all. But, I do disagree with that. I do disagree with that.
That was awesome. That is a fucking awesome reaction. That is good.
Let's get rocking here for some questions on the Houston Texans.
Am I the tension that's being cut in between you two right now?
No, I'll just ask the fucking question.
I just like getting a rise out of him. Oh my gosh, look at that smile.
He's hot.
He's hot. This is what we need. This is what we need.
Okay. My question for you guys is Stroud closer to a Dak Prescott than a Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, what an interesting question. Is he closer to Dak Prescott than Patrick Mahomes? I mean, yeah, he doesn't have any rings like Dak. I mean, in terms of that argument, he doesn't have what Mahomes has. He doesn't have the hardware. He doesn't have the MVPs. I think their play styles, he's probably more Dak than Mahomes too. Stroud can get outside the pocket, but Mahomes kind of has that creativity off script where I think Stroud and Dak kind of are more assassins from the pocket. Not that Mahomes isn't, but I think they do less outside the pocket compared to a guy like Mahomes. So, I mean, after his rookie year, people were anointing him the next, up and coming elite quarterback, and now he's kind of took the step back. I think he's certainly closer to Dak than he is Mahomes in terms of rankings on quarterbacks that I were to rank.
I don't think he's asking in terms of rankings. Closer. I think he just means play style. I mean, rankings. I
just argued about the play style for 30 seconds. I just said that, and now I'm saying both.
Hey, calm down.
You're cutting me off when I just said that.
What I will say is he definitely showed a lot of flashes as a runner in the playoffs. I mean, 6 carries for 42 yards in both playoff games is nice. We didn't really see a lot, but we did see in the playoffs, when it came time, the crunch time, he was able to pick up some big first downs. He had longs of 28 and 27. That's big time in the playoffs. I mean, that's what I mean. That's why I'm going to say, yeah, maybe he is more like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if they can protect him a little bit, I mean, I think you can make the case that he's the second best quarterback in the league now. But what I will say is I think, yeah, it's hard to ever get to the Patrick Mahomes level. But after his rookie year, yeah, I would have said, yeah, there's a chance. I mean, he's obviously got the weapons. It just comes down to, can you protect the guy and can he take that next step forward? Did the defenses adjust or did he just regress? I mean, it's a big offseason for him. You hope he's doing all the right things and he's not, worried about podcasting like us. There's enough of us out there. We don't need more of you trying to podcast out there with Micah Parsons. Maybe focus on taking that next step because the AFC's tough. And unless he takes that next step, they'll never get by. If he plays like he did last year, they're a win on Saturday and out the next round at best because, you ain't beating the Ravens. You ain't beating the Chiefs. You ain't beating the Bills. I'm not even going to say the Bengals because they don't deserve it, which is kind of crazy. I'm not going to get on too big of a tangent, but it's we kind of just put the Bengals in the conversation. It's they haven't been in the playoffs in 2 years.
Yeah, but they're the only ones that have beaten Mahomes in the AFC. So,
yeah.
Well, since Brady. So,
although it's hypothetical, but you would think if they were in that division, I mean, they'd probably win it or be, neck and neck with the Texans they're in the AFC South instead. But hey, if statements don't matter. It ain't the world we live in, and it's the world we'll never live in. So in this world, the Houston Texans made the playoffs. In this world, CJ Stroud is an up-and-coming quarterback. So I'm curious to see kind of Texans fans, where are you guys at with him? Do you really think he's a long-term answer? I would imagine the answer is yes, but are you fully sold? Do you have those same feelings and butterflies of what the future could look like that you did his rookie year? Or are you more hesitant and nervous about what CJ Stroud will become after last year? But
yeah, I think Texans fans, if you're a Texans fan, I think you're in a pretty good spot here. You're a playoff team. You got to feel comfortable, but let us know. Is it offensive line or bust at 25? Are you guys open to some other options here? We'd love to hear from you. Hit the comments, like, subscribe. Let us know. We appreciate you tuning in. It's been a fun mini-series, Reagan. 32 out of 32, done. Now it's all about the draft.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It has been good.
We'll catch you next time here on Around the Felt Sports. Stay tuned for a lot of mock drafts.